alien which you have just finished was a born American who settled in England. W.H. Auden was a born British who settled in America. Look at this transfer across the Atlantic. One thing, very easily you can do. I mean to suggest that there is a definite claim of W.H. Auden, in spite of being a great war poet, in spite of being a poet of the movement poet, and in spite of being a great successor of his period as a modernist. W.H. Auden always accepted Thomas Hardy as his literary mentor. Now this is really very strange. The typical modern poet accepts Hardy as his true mentor. In a way, he was his poetical father. Now this brings into focus the two significant aspects of modern speaking. One is the crisis inside, and the other is the nature outside. As Hardy had his own passion, looked into man's nature, the stick and concordance together, we have a similar kind of profession in the Auden. Auden had certain preoccupations or even preconditions of his mind. Early W.H. Auden was a Marxist. He believed in Marxism. Now this doesn't mean he becomes a political philosopher. This simply means that his love for the grounding, his love for the common man, and his concerns about the pathetic condition of common man are marked by beautiful theological as well as philosophical message of Marxism. So early W.H. Auden was a Marxist, to make it very simple. He was unidealized. When I say he was a Marxist, I mean that the portrayal of life is unidealized. Ideal man and real man are different. It's not the kind of idealization of life that we notice in Wordsworth's poetry, for example. We do not have that kind of idealization, neither of nature nor of man. Auden always presented or looked at humanity as an unidealized entity, unidealized. At the moment you look at man as an unidealized creature, you look at the harsh reality of life. No idea, real, and real was horrible. Because there were two big wars, 1929, 1939, the American World War. Between the wars was a focal point of the convention. Unidealized man, contemporary man, and also noticeably urban man. So urbanism, contemporaneity, and unidealized portrayal of man are the salient features or one of the features of modern poetry. Now this early Auden, which I said was a Marxist, had also later on developed certain metaphysical traits. Because the doctrines which we call as metaphysical are generally related with some bold rhythms of life on the one hand and the experimental nature of poetry on the other. I will show you how experimental poetry uses. You know, he was the son of a doctor. I sometimes refer to some biographical truths because that has a direct linkage on his way of looking at things. He was the son of a doctor. And one thing very obvious is that he believed poetry should be absolutely clinical. Now, this clinical perception of poetry is making both pathological in detail, which was suitable for the portrayal of the modern man's condition. Therefore, we believe that there is a lot of experimental nature in his poetry. I will show you how he uses different kinds of vertical arrangements in different stanzas, which was basically a nature of experimentation in art. The style was definitely composite, no doubt. There was a blend of casualness on the one hand, organically contrived states of life and mind, and also the literary features joined together. So we find that the style of W.H. Auden is very composite. It rather combines multiple strengths, poetic strengths. He was gifted with epigrammatic expressions, or conversationalism is also a noticeable feature of Auden's poetry. When you read his lines, you sometimes feel like talking to him. This is because of the conversational tone inside. And because of this conversationalism, deeply ingrained in his poetic perception and his education, quite naturally the readers developed a certain kind of intimacy with him, which was very rare, because we sometimes don't feel that kind of intimacy with T.S. Eliot as we find here in case of Auden, because Eliot sometimes looks very tough. Rather, it is easier to be more friendly with W.H. Auden, W.B. Yeats, than with Eliot. It's still more difficult with Hopkins, who uses this concept. So, what I mean to suggest is that Auden's structure, which is experimental in nature, has certain kind of conversational tonality, resulting into a beautiful intimacy with the reader. So, the proximity with the emotion discussed or dealt with in his poetry is a natural consequence of Auden's text. Christian paradoxes were there, no problem, but the intimacy with the reader led him or leads the reader also to the poet's will and his perception. The poet's voice is the voice of love, basically. Never forget. Because he happens to be a great lover of words. But there are two things. One is love of words, the other is love of words. He is a lover of words. Love for the words, very casual, very incidental, maybe very transitory, but love of words has a longevity greater than the other one. So his love of words results into his verbal plutocracy, what you can call it. Verbal plutocracy, as if there is a lot of verbal eloquence, there is a lot of conversation, there is a lot of intimacy in the poetry of like T.S. Eliot, Auden sometimes and oftentimes grapples with the darkness of man's heart. He too grapples with the same situation that Eliot had in his poetry, because it was investigating the condition of man. So he too grapples with that. And in this grappling, he also exhibits a similar kind of range and variety of thought. Vast range and multiple nature of it. So variety and range of Eliot is also found in Auden's book. In spite of having so much of the scholarship, so much of vision insight, Auden never speaks like a prophet. He always speaks like a friend talking to a friend. He never speaks from the pulpit. There is no such distancing. I've already told you that you can develop a certain kind of intimacy with the poet. No wonder the gentleman was known as the Picasso of the English world. Picasso. I'm using deliberately the name of a great painter. Picasso was a great painter, and he is known as a Picasso in verse. Each word, therefore, is a picture. Each word in his poetry is like a portrait, a picture. I'm reminded of a similar kind of a statement that probably Robert Frost has given. Poetry is also a picture in words. Poetry is not just a verbal description of a reality. It's a picture in words. It's a portrait in words. So this is a kind of transmigration of one sense of perception into another. The visual becomes verbal, and the verbal transmits itself into the visual. Therefore, this interaction that takes place between the word and the portraits of life that are reflected through the word are intermingled with the poetry of the Auden fundamentally a romantic. I give you multiple things because a modernist, a romanticist, a Marxist, an existentialist. I will show you multiple facets of modern poetry that will be progressing. So we believe that his poetry has this extension, registering itself through the changing moods of life, conveyed through multiple types of diction, using different verbal patterns, and also rhythm, rhyme, metrical arrangements. They also may vary from one stanza, from one section to another. I will show you. So fundamentally, he is a romantic in this. Romantic does not mean romantic in the sense what was a romantic. No. We consider W. Yeats also as a romantic. He himself said as one of the last romantics. You remember that? I wanted to discuss the kind of sophistication, the aristocracy that is brought to English poetry was his romanticism. In W.H. Auden's case, the romanticism is deliberately lying in this kind of changing process, quickly changing from one to another. The process is therefore is not fixated. The portrait of life, therefore, is all the time metamorphosed from one to another, and this is grappling with the facets of life, in fact, the different dimensions of life. So the bold rhythm, the engaging fluency, the experimental nature, I showed you the different changing moods of life, and also the time. Finally, we may say that there are different four categories in which we can put the entire canon of W.H. Auden's poetry. One is psychological. His poems are psychological. The other is moral. The third is political. And the fourth is religious. Psychological, moral, political, and religious are the four basic strengths in the poetry of W.H. You know, as a modern poet, he too was equally considered as Yeats was another poet there, particularly Stephen Spencer, Dylan Thomas, and W.H. Auden. We cannot forget them. And we cannot separate them in a way they are having a common shared experience of anxiety, or shared anxiety. C.D. Lewis and Stephen Spencer come closest to W.H. Auden in their responses to life. So we have basically the portrayal of the doomsday state of man, civilization will come, death which is there, life in turmoil, crisis of all types. You have many examples from English studies. You will find equals. And ultimately, it is the human tragedy, universal human tragedy, articulated by different specific needs, experiences, varieties. He uses three words. He also uses rhymed words. I told you he is very experimental in the use of different patterns. The blend of the political and the psychological, the moral and the religious, and then they open found but a noticeable change came in his philosophical approach to life when he migrated to America. I told you there was a born British who migrated to America. So long he was here on this side, he was a deeply Marxist philosopher. But when he switched over to when he crossed the Atlantic, he was badly influenced by the existentialism. Of all, I remember Kierkegaard most because Kierkegaardian philosophy has the most truth is there, but then more than that, it is there. So with this transcendence of approach, of response to the given situation, and to the subjects that he is with are noticeable features of the image order as a modern poet. Between the part, after the part, belonging to the literary group of movement poets. They are known as movement poets, very close to that. But after Yeats, extending the tradition of that literary perception, which is Yeats' mark of self. Look at the poems. We have two poems of orders and like for study. You know, he had so many collections of poems. He had written profusely. The Dog Willis King, for example, and Look at Stranger, for example, are the most famous ones. Look at Stranger and the Dog Willis King. There are ages of anxiety, the sea of the mirror, for the time being, the quest, New Year letter, double man, these are the famous collections of Autumn poetry. We are going to read two poems. They are taken from two different collections. First, we shall check up in memory of W. Yeats, which is apparently an edition. Because Yeats has that, and you have read Yeats, so it will be easier for you to locate and understand the feeling of W. Order about W. Yeats. Now, this is a poem in memory of W. Yeats, which is elegiac in tone, in a strain, has been taken from the selected poetry of W. Jordan, which was this poem figured in other books also, because some of the poems are selected from the first collection, but this is here basically from the selected poetry of W. Jordan. You know, Yeats died in 1939, the period of the World War. You remember that? You have read history. I have never read, but I hope if I am not wrong, it's about the period of the war. So those who know history, they know better. In memory of W. Yeats is apparently a reflective poem. Reflective because it reflects the impression that Autumn had, and probably the world had about W. Yeats. And when he passed away, how the world felt is probably communicated through W.H. So it's a sympathetic revelation of the personality or the traits of the personality or the qualities of W. Yeats as a great poet. This poem is divided into three sections. I give you as the outline the theme. Section 1 is written in iambic meter, but the lines are uneven. You will find it. Section 2 is written in conventional blank verse. It's a very small one. And section 3 is again written in some syllabic lines, or 7 syllabic lines, moving like a funeral march. This is the experimental nature in a way. One section written in iambic meter, the other written in blank verse, the third written in 7 iambic, 7 PTC, syllabic arrangement, something like the funeral march. Funeral march is not the march to the battleground. It's not a march to the playground. So the motion is different. And so the rhythm changes. Right, look at it. The rhythm changes. And this change of rhythm is the experimental nature of W.H. Auden as a poet. So I give you very concrete instance of how experimental poetry is written by him on account of the different changing rhythms of time. Yeats is now dead. Right. He disappeared in the depth of winter. Let us first see the lines, then we shall go into the texture of it. it disappeared in the dead of winter. The groups were frozen. The airport almost deserted. Winter symbolizes death itself. The cold of the winter is the end of the warmth of life. It is also the winter that creates a chill in the mind of his lover. They are all in shock. Winter is not only the time. Winter is the nature of experience after the departure of Yeats as a poet. His lovers were in fact shocked, frozen. Look at the description. The internal state of mind is reflected in the external state of the group. The group is frozen. He disappeared in the dead of winter. Dead of winter. It was extreme cold. Maybe creating the most shocking experience for his lovers, or the lovers of poetry all over the world. The groups were frozen. So the lucidity and flow of the light is not that which you might have noticed in the wasteland. It is just frozen. It has the humidity, it has the light, it has the water, it has the regenerative capacity. But only in the matter of time. So at the moment it is frozen. It's a state of shock. The airports are almost deserted. Look at the typical modern image. This is the airport looks deserted, meaning there are no flights taking off, no landing, no transaction. So transactions of the world have stopped. To show that there is no transaction, he uses a typical modern image. The airport looks deserted. Look at the choice of the metaphor, and look at the choice of the diction, the language that he uses. Airport is almost deserted. And snow disfigured the public statues. There was so much of snowfall that all public statues, there are so many statues of great men and women all around the small squares of the cities. All those statues have been covered by the snow. So white snow has covered the statues representing glory, ideals of life, because the statues are not ordinary men and women. They are celebrated ideals of society and humanity. They are all covered under a white snow. The white snow symbolizing the color of the cloth that wraps the dead body, number one, that they are all synchronic. This is the synchronization of the experience and metaphor of death in the form of these statues covered under the snow. It's a death of winter, therefore. The snow disfigured the public statue. This disfigurement is not a play or an interference in the fabric of thought and philosophy that they represented, mind it. This disfigurement is not a distortion. This disfigurement is in fact a disappearance because it has been covered. It's not distorted, it's disappeared. So, this indeed is the public statue disfigured. The mercury sank in the mouth of the dying day. It's a beautiful image that they have chosen to suggest. The mercury has sank in the mouth of the dying day. So the sun is dying. The mercury has dipped low. The day is dying. It is not dead. It is dying. Because the warmth has gone down. Mercury has fallen. And what instrument we have agreed the day of his death was the last cold day. It's very simple that the day of Yeats' death was a dark day in the history of art, humanity, because a great poet had departed. But more than that, the question arises as to what kind of instrument have they agreed? What is this instrument? It's a typical astronomical image that the poet is using. You know, sun is the instrument that gives you the time. Sun is almost an instrument. When you look into your watch, you know the time. It's an instrument. So when there are no watches or there are no watches, this is the only instrument that we agree. So when we find the sun at the top and we find our shadows missing, we believe it is 12 o'clock or 0. So this is the instrument which we have agreed. This is the metaphor. That we have agreed to this fallen state. We have agreed to this dark cold light, or we have agreed the instrument which we have taken, meaning that while this is the way we have taken the then what? So the death of Yeats is a shocking experience. The shock has been conveyed to different metaphors, nature, modern, and also mechanical. One, that the roof is frozen, that there are no flights taking off from the airport, that there is absolute cold, that the mercury has gotten down. Mercury, because when you use the barometer, it's the barometer. The barometer is the instrument through which you know the temperature of the atmosphere. So what is the temperature of the mind? What is in fact the instrument that we have agreed to after the departure of the year? So instrument is there, mechanical image or scientific image, then the flight is taking off. So all imaginations are suspended. Flight of the airport is a flight of imagination. No imagination is working. Because in reality, the ideas and the emotions are frozen, like a fruit frozen. It was the death of the winter, so it has a chilling impact. Right? So these metaphors, the poet simply wants to communicate the sense of shock, the state of loss, and the multiple metaphors that reverberate in the construction. Two different images, no light, fruit frozen. Those transactions in the world. Imagination has ceased, okay, because the state of the mind is that of the frozen soul. Therefore, instruments have also changed. It's not the barometer telling the temperature of the atmosphere, it's the state of the mind that tells you the temperature of the emotion. The emotion is damped. The feeling is shocked. The intellect is restricted. The imagination is pulled down. These are in fact the conditions which the poet wants to convey, because a great artist has that will be going to die of his death. What is it? Just before that. He says, far from his illness, the wolf ran on to the evergreen forest. I told you in the beginning, it's an elegy with a difference. In every conventional elegy, the dominant emotion is that of sadness. And in the first stanza, we have seen that everything seems to have stopped. The heart seems to have stopped. The fruit is frozen. The emotion is there. Imagination, heart, feeling, everything. But seems to have been shocked. It's of shock. But in the next stanza, we find that the state of shock is not extended. There is more motion. There is life. Well, this contradicts the previous stanza in a way. And so, I told you, the rhythm changes in time from shock to motion. Did you get it? And here, what he says, when he was going to die or was passing through his acute state of illness, Dr. Yeats had a lung problem in the last part of his life. It was a very bad and pathetic condition in his healing. Although, even before, just 5 months before his death, he had concluded his last work. So his mind was fertile, no doubt, but his body was aged. Okay? So he said that when he was dying in the hospital in a way, here is the condition. That far from his illness, he was ill, no doubt. Far from his illness, the wolves were running in the forest. The wolves were running in the forest through the evergreen forest. Remember, now look at the description. On the one hand, we had a frozen state of mind and nature also. Okay? And here there is a evergreen land and there is a running wolf. It's not flying nightingale or cuckoo, it is running wolf in the forest. There is life, there is motion. Energy is there, but there is greater emphasis on life than on death. This is the difference in this elegy from the general conventional elegy written for whatever. I mean, so many people have read. So far from his illness, the wolf ran on to the evergreen forest. The Pigeon River was untempted by the fashionable guy. When the wolves were running in the forest. Look at the motion. And the Pigeon River, it was typical Irish river. I told you when they were discussing the prayer of the father for his daughter. Remember? W.H.'s poem. The peasant river was also there, and he wanted his daughter to get to be clamped in Irish traditions, never to be uprooted. It's the same echoing here that the peasant river was still flowing, but nobody could digress, nobody could change, and no fashionable guide could influence the flow of the peasant river. Meaning thereby, the typical Irishness of poetry, of art, of culture, civilization, and life was static, even if, because it was all frozen in the identity of the W.H. It was static, it was static. No fashionable guide could influence it, meaning thereby, no stylistic deviation you could notice there, and he himself had written in the poem, beautiful, the quote. Embroidered one is a fashionable style that he implemented, but the real thing was just identified with the Irishness. So this is represented here through the river flowing, which is definitely Irish, and no fashionable guide, there is no extraordinary different fashionable styles of writing could change the loyalty of W.H.'s poetry to his native land. W.H. was always dedicated to the land. His sensibility, his culture, his creativity was all attached deeply, inseparably with the flowing river. No stylish changes could influence his mind. Nothing could influence about. Apart from his illness, the woods ran on to the evergreen forest. The region ran river, remember this, typical native river, Irish one, was untempted by the fashionable guy. And the peasants are the peasants of Ireland. You remember that W.H. had developed a fascination for his Irish countryside, Irish gentry, Irish culture, Irish poetry, Irish nationalism, and therefore all those are represented here by the image of the peasant river. Untempted by the fashionable guy, nothing could bring about any change. The identity, national, literary, cultural, okay, was all maintained in the art of W.H. So W.H. in a way stands for unflinching fidelity to and cultural unity to his own nation, to his own soil. That is a tribute in this elegy. W.H. already paying a tribute to the great fidelity of W.H. to his own nation, to his own culture, in the form of the peasant river flowing without being influenced by the fashionable guy. Which nothing could change. By morning sun, the death of the poet was kept from his mind. Look, there is, I told you already, there is emphasis on life. There is no emphasis on death. He is dying, but the words of the poet now are kept in the minds of his reader. Look at the line. The morning sun is the people who were mourning the death of the W.H. The death of the poet was kept from his mind. In their life, who died? W.H. died. His poem did not die. The poet died, but the art did not. And so long his art is alive, the poet is dead. It's a kind of tribute to that, to his poetry. The death of the poet was kept from his poem. Meaning that the man who created the poetry is dead, but the art that he created is eternal, and so the poet and the poetry have been separated. This is how looking at the creativity or the creating self of an individual in course of saying tribute to the departed soul. I get it. W.H. model is ages. In a way, reflect, reconnect, and echo the same perception that Yeats has beautifully defined, that the man who creates or the man who suffers is different from the mind that creates. The man who created the poetry was W.H. He is dead. But the mind named W.H. who created the poetry, neither the mind is dead nor the poetry. The mind that creates is different from the man who suffers. So the man lives the experience. He has a living experience. This is how poetry is. So the poetry that you write is not the person you experience as a person you experience, okay? But as a writer, you transfer your experience into art. It's the same poet who had the experience and who composes a poem are two different poets. The poet you experience and the poet who wrote are WBA's condition is here attributed to this condition, it is to this articulation that the man who created this art eternal is no doubt dead. Body is now dead. But the mind has not ceased to be, nor his art will ever cease to be. That is why his poetry has been kept away from the poet. The death of the poet was kept from him. The segregation of the man from his mind. So the external instrument of our measuring the facts of life in this weather, which is virtually the shock that it gave, are now ultimately merging in the presence of eternity, because the poetry is undying, the poetry is dead. But that was the last afternoon of his life. Very simple. If you read the lines, you hardly require to consult a dictionary. Very simple. But for him, it was his last afternoon as himself. WBA, it was the last afternoon of WBA as WBA. His poetry is eternal, his intellect and mind unforgettable, but his self, which is physical, is now dead. So as himself, as his own physical self, it was the last evening. And what was the evening? I told you, he was in the hospital. Look at the description. But for him, it was his last afternoon as himself, an afternoon of nurses and dreamers. It was an afternoon of nurses and dreamers. So when he was in the hospital dying, nurses used to come out and go in, giving this impression to the people waiting outside whether he is alive or not. What is the condition of WBA? So it was a time, an afternoon of rumors, news all the time. This is known as medical bulletin. So the nurses used to give the medical bulletin, the condition of the life of WBA. So Gordon says it was the last afternoon in the life of WBA. It was an afternoon of nurses and rumors about his survival and death. Because you know he had suffered a nervous breakdown, and there was always a chance of his departure. But still people were trying hard to save him. It's a general weakness and debilitated condition of life or body. The provinces of his body reported. Look at the province. WBA seems to be like a country. Whose limbs are like the extended territories of the country, like a province. Like Bihar, like UP, like Punjab, like Himachal. The body of India has so many provinces, and the provinces are like the limbs of the body. Look at the metaphorical image. At the same time, this geographical image. This is why the geographical? It is because WBA is inseparable from his nativity, inseparable from Irishness, with the patent identity which is most dominating, and therefore he has been taken as the whole of our. So, the provinces of his body revolted. Naturally, when he was going to die, his body was shaking. The squares of his mind were empty. The mind was failing. It was a nervous breakdown. So, look at the description. He never said he was passing through nervous breakdown. The squares of his mind, the empty squares of his mind were now failing him. The body parts were rebelling. Silence invaded the suburbs. Look at the typical geographical image. Suburbs. The city has a central position, and there are suburbs growing outside. They are, if you think WBA is a city, the suburbs are his hands and legs. So the suburbs were gradually becoming silent. Meaning their life, death was coming. So gradually, all the limbs of WBA were ceasing to function. Gradually, his heart also stopped functioning. Mind had also become empty because the squares were empty and the limbs were all stretched but frozen in a way, gradually sinking. So this is a graphic description of the gradual moments of death that occupied WBA's presence in the world. But for him, it was the afternoon as himself, an afternoon of nurses and dreamers. The provinces of his body revolted, the squares of his mind were empty, silence invaded the suburbs, the current of his feeling failed. The of his feeling gets so the senses also collapse. The gradual description that the hands suspended motion, the legs were calm, so imagine the heart was beating, finally the senses collapsed, and all the squares of his mind were open. So this is a gradual description of how death occupied WBH, captured WBH. WBH is a territory. WBH is a symbol of a culture, of a nation, of Irish identity, a city. Okay. The river was flowing, but now the river has stopped because the body has been captured by death. So silence is hidden the suburbs. The current of his feeling fails. Current, that is the life. The spirit has now failed. He is now dead. He becomes his admirer. Eternity has been recaptured again. He says the current of his body has failed. Meaning thereby WBH died. And what has he become? After death, he has become his admirer. Meaning thereby, he has ceased to live in his body. He now lives in the minds and the bodies of his admirer. Very simple. Beautifully, he has said that now he lives and he has become his admirer. He is no longer WBH, he is you and I. So he lives in you and I. And this is how WBH has transcended the limitations of life and death. Here, because his poetry has been separated from the poet. Poetry is different. So the poet was kept from his poem. The body has failed, but he is still alive because he has become his admirer. Now he is scattered. And wholly given over to unfamiliar affections. That's another kind of imagination. Irish peasantry, Irish culture, Irishness in WBH's poetry has now become the part of this universe. And since it has transgressed the native territories, it is now being subjected to scrutiny from other parameters of judgment. Irishness judged, or the poetry of WBH judged in the context of Irish culture and civilization is one thing. But the poetry of WBH being judged from American cultural point of view, from Indian point of view, from Australian point of view, for example, is the native being examined from alien consideration. Alien. And everywhere WBH stands, meaning thereby he transcends all barriers and he can be examined from any parameters of judgment. You apply any methods of evaluation of poetic nature and WBH will stand erect. You get it? So this is how a celebration of the universal qualities of WBH's poetry is being presented. Now he is scattered among the 100 cities. It's not that his ashes were scattered in 100 cities. It's not Nehru is scattered over the top of the Himalayas. So Nehru was very scientific. He didn't believe in the kind of religious orthodoxy, and he was on many accounts he never agreed with Mahatma. Okay. Also, finally, he reconciled. I'm not going into the details, but the point is, when he had written in his will, finally, you must know, Nehru is a wonderful prose writer. Very few prose writers can match the style of Nehru. Very few. And the kind of will he had written, mostly when the father died or the mother died, she or he leaves a beautiful will for the family. That my property will go to so and so, my property will go to so and so, they will have a share. Nehru also had written a will, and the will had only 2 lines, 3 lines. One was, let my ashes be drowned at Sangam. Let it be the part of the river Ganga. Not because he was a religious man, don't misunderstand. And let other parts of the ashes be sprinkled on the top of the Himalayas. And people question his religiosity. You always criticize your father's spirituality and Mahatma Gandhi's spirituality. What has happened to you? Why do you want to become a part of Ganga and the Himalayas? He says, it is because I want to be a part of the earth. I'm not going to be. And the other is I want to become a part of the water. That's the language. So this is how. I mean, so this is not WBH's ashes scattered in the different parts of the world, but he has become an inseparable part of international perception. That is how poetry extends its territory and goes into the wider arena of application, where it can withstand all parameters of it. To examine his poetry from any point of view, without losing without losing the Irishness, without losing the nativity, without losing the nationality. He is still there, an Irish man, and yet he is not an Irish one. He is a foreign. So that is how W.B. Yeats has been presented in the writing discussion. I think I should stop it here. Please mark the line. We will see the different sections.